living reverently or just reverence itself. And in Leviticus chapter 10, beginning in verse 1, we see Nadab and Abihu. These are the first priests. They have just been anointed as priests, and they are starting out their duties. And we'll read in verse 1, Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense in it, and offered profane fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. Okay, so they are doing their priestly duties. And let's just discuss what they are doing right before we get to what they did wrong, because I think we can see what they did wrong. They have every right to do the duties of a priest. They were anointed as priests. They are correct in that they are the sons of Aaron, and the sons of Aaron are the priests. They are Levite, and of course they would be if they're sons of Aaron, so that is okay. They are doing their duties. Does their duties include that of this incense being put into a censer? Yes, they have done that right. Is something wrong with the incense? No. There was a, if you will, a recipe. There was a combination of specific herbs, specific things going into that incense. That was specific, and that has been done correctly. The censers are right. The priests being there, they're the correct ones. And they're put, you have the censers, they are fine, nothing wrong with those. But here we come to this profane fire. What would that be? That would be fire God did not command them to use. Some other fire is being used other than what He commanded them, which is a major principle that we need to understand. That when God specifies one thing, everything else is excluded. When He specifies one thing, nothing else is to be used but that one thing. And when it comes to the burning of incense, He had evidently specified a specific fire they were to use. So they weren't to use any other fire. Verse 2. So fire went out from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. He was angry at them. Now, I want you to see these next words. And Moses said to Aaron, this is what the Lord spoke, saying. This is a message directly to Aaron, because he's the high priest. He's not the one that did this, but his sons did. He didn't do this, or he would have died with them. But here is the message. By those who come near me, I must be regarded as holy. Did he mean that? Well, you have two charred bodies there that might prove the point that he meant it. And these were priests, just anointed, which would have been a catastrophe. And it would have been a catastrophe even if they had been serving as priests for 10 years. It still would have been a catastrophe, but they're just beginning. And he means you are to regard me as holy. He means that. And before all the people, I must be glorified. Which means what? What they were doing, they weren't regarding him as holy, because they're not taking his word and being fully obedient to his word. And in not doing that, they did not glorify him before the people. By being fully obedient to him, in fact, they would be regarding him as holy, and they would be glorifying him, and all could see it. What's the message? The message is, if you are going to worship God, and you're going to have to, if you're going to serve God, and you're going to have to, you don't get to opt out of that, and that's okay. You don't. This is a requirement. He is to be regarded as holy. And if He's not, who do you think you're worshiping? Obviously, you're not worshiping God because you don't regard Him as holy. Obviously, you're not worshiping God because you're not glorifying Him. And do you think that Nadab and Abihu died saved? I think we can come to a conclusion they couldn't have. He doesn't take people home who are righteous in such a way. They had not regarded Him as holy. They did not glorify Him. It was taken too casually, too lackadaisically, just as though it's a common thing of where His words don't really matter. Yes, they do matter. Full obedience to Him matters. And when it comes to worship, it matters. And Aaron is told not to show any kind of public mourning for his sons. He's not allowed to do it. God's not going to tell him that he can't be sorrowful, but he's not to show it. He's not to show that publicly at all. And he must be regarded as holy. Now, is this only relegated to Nadab and Abihu and only them? No, he's telling Aaron that everybody else following is going to have to regard him as holy and do everything properly. Take him and as holy and glorify him among the people. Everybody. Is this a principle that comes to us today? Yes, it is a principle. And we are to show a reverence to Him. Let's define reverence. What does that mean? To show reverence is showing great respect. That's what it's there. Under the Greek word, it has the connotation of something that's taken seriously, with all sobriety, and with proper conduct, being respectful, being fully respectful. Well, if you take Him as holy, and if you're going to glorify Him before everybody else, there's going to have to be reverence there. There's going to have to be that respect that is there. It's not this casual attitude of, well, we can do this or not do that. It doesn't really matter. Well, what are we even talking about? Maybe it does matter. If it's a matter of worship, then we have to do it the way we've been told to do it. All of mankind have been told, but that doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. And that may even mean you and me. We've got to look. We've got to make sure that we are doing things truly in a respectful, reverent way. Some things are to be shown reverence, to be esteemed highly. And when it comes to God, to be hallowed, to recognize Him as holy, to recognize Him as our God, as the only God. Now let's talk for a second of what reverence is not. Just for a second. We've talked about what it is. Let's further define it by what it's not, because folks can have crazy thoughts in their heads, and you know folks that just have crazy sort of notions. Flawed notions. That's not any better than saying crazy, but flawed notions that we are to be reverent. But what does that mean? Does that mean only stone silence? Is that what that means? Because I can show you in the Bible where there were plenty of people who went before God. They were crying, and I mean crying. They're weeping. Some that are singing, some that are shouting, some that are begging. It seems like the entire spectrum of human emotion in all this. I can show you of Psalms where the psalmist, it's what's known as imprecatory psalms. is calling for justice to be done. All right, is that still regarding Him as holy? Yes, it is. Going to Him, and it doesn't matter what the emotion happens to be, always regarding Him as holy. And that we aren't set here to be stoic. We're not set here to just have no emotions whatsoever, that nothing can affect us whatsoever, because it will. Life's going to throw at us, and Satan's going to throw at us some rough stuff. And there's going to be some stress involved. There's going to be some emotional pressures involved. There's going to be some things of bending to see if we're going to break. And we are the ones that decide if we are not going to break. We're the ones that decide that. Now, does reverence also mean absolute formality created by men? And no, anything created by men, we might want to set that aside and kind of take a look at that. What does God call on us to do? Look at that and set that as being the standard. And something that's going to infiltrate in that, something that's going to seep into that, just keep that aside. But it's not just an absolute formality, and everything is to be done decently and in order. That is true. But there are some extremes that are taken concerning formality. Some taking it way too casually, where there's nothing formal at all. Some taking it too far. And it's almost like we're talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And because they really are a type of beliefs in this that can be just kind of taken through time. But someone taking things too casually, someone taking things a bit too formally, too strict, too rigid, of where God did not set that at all. I'll give you two examples. One is that of addressing God. What does Christ say about His name? Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed is your name. Hallowed is your name. And remembering that wasn't too long ago we spoke about that was new, actually. You look in the Old Testament, you're not going to find anybody praying to God who called Him Father. They didn't do it. It's Christ who brings that to where we can call Him Father, but understand the respect that has to be there. My dad, I respected my dad, but I didn't have to respect him like I'm to respect God. God's my creator. My dad is my dad. Okay? And he had his flaws like everybody does. He had his flaws, and I gave him the respect due. That is true. I tried to anyway. But I could take a far more casual aspect with my dad than I can with our Heavenly Father. And some will take it way too far and address God, Jehovah God, the Lord of hosts, by the word daddy. And that grates on me because I think that's making Him too casual. In our language, that is a casual term. He is called Father. There were in the Greek language other words that Christ could have chosen, but He chose that word, and He always referred to Abba, Father. He always used that form of the word. He always did. Let's not make Him into something that is common, that is just too casual, of where He is the as a writer put it, of Christ is like the neighbor who had the pickup truck and always comes over and he wrestles with the kids. Christ is good. Christ is a friend, but Christ also is to be hallowed. And understand He is the Son of God. He is in the Godhead. Now, taking it to the other extreme, and that is of someone who is going to bind things on us. Now, some pray, and I don't have a problem with it, pray in Old English, using thy and thou. I don't have a problem with that. As long as we understand what you're saying, I don't have a problem with that. Okay? I don't have a problem with that at all. But when you're going to bind it on others, that's when you may have you've taken it too far if you're going to bind that on others, because using the word you and yours shows no lack of disrespect, nor is it making it into a common thing. That if any of us were to go in front of some high official, we wouldn't suddenly go into Old English, and nor would it be expected that we would. Nor would it be expected. So you and your is just as fine as thee and thou, and I don't have a problem with that at all. At all, but you cannot bind it. Now, reverence, what does reverence mean? It means regarding God as holy. It means glorifying Him, and that does mean all the time. It is daily conduct. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 28 and verse 14. Proverbs 28, verse 14, happy is the man who is always reverent. That's a daily action. Blessed, happy is the man who is always reverent, but he who hardens his heart will fall into calamity. So, as we have been studying in the book of Proverbs, with each proverb, we need to take it as a whole, and quite often also we need to, as a whole means taking other proverbs and even taking the more of the Bible to help us in understanding a proverb. But in here we have this comparison being made as the one who is reverent and the one who hardens his heart. So one who is not reverent has hardened their heart. Be careful. This proverb may be showing that. Be careful that if we are not truly reverent, are we hardening our heart? Even when we wouldn't want to. Even when the idea just is against what we would think. Well, there are times, I remember as a kid, time that I did something and an adult put it in perspective for me, and I didn't realize that, well, I don't want to be that way, but you were. You doing this is what it means. Oh, I had no idea. Well, now you do. Don't do it anymore. Now you do know it. Happy is the man who is always reverent. That is a daily conduct, a daily action. We go to 1 Peter chapter 1. 1 Peter chapter 1, we begin in verse 13. And we just have these words. Therefore, gird up the loins of your mind, be sober, and rest your hope fully upon the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ, as obedient children, not conforming yourselves to the former lusts as in your ignorance, but as He has called you, as He who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. That is daily behavior. That is daily conduct. And that goes directly to your heart or your mind. That this is something that is to be done always. Now, he says, because it is written, be holy, for I am holy. Well, that means it's written somewhere, and yeah, it is. It's Leviticus chapter 11, verse 44 and 45. Both of them say that. Chapter 19 and 2, chapter 20 and verse 7. But if we look at 11 and verse 44, all of them have those words, be holy, for I am holy. All those have those words, but Leviticus 11 It wasn't too long that we were in Leviticus chapter 10. Leviticus chapter 10 with Nadab and Abihu. And here he is saying, you are to be holy because I am holy. Well, what does that mean for us? That one, we regard Him as holy, and our conduct must match the example of Christ. Will we have failures? Yes. What do? We return back to God, is what we do. And you don't play games with Him. He knows your heart. He knows the intent. He knows everything about you. You can't play games with Him and think, I'll sin and I'll come back and all's good. I'll sin again and I'll come back and it's good. And I'll sin again. And God knows that. There is an old blues song. And yes, I do like blues. There's an old blues song. And it goes through the days of the week. And it comes to, and you have this person who every day seems to be pretty bad. But it gets to Saturday. Saturday is mine. Saturday I do what I want to do. Saturday is for anything I want to do. That's what I want to do. And on Sunday, I go to God and I ask for forgiveness. All right, that's what it boils down to. I say I'm sorry. And then the week starts all over again. And it's the same thing that happens. Well, God knows your mind. He knows the intent. He knows when you are wanting to do right, and He also knows when you're just planning it. You're not going to make Him into a fool. You're not going to make Him into someone who's just going to believe anything you put His way, because He's not. He can see through everything. And your behavior will show, and this is your daily behavior, your behavior will show what you fear. Your conduct will show what you respect. And everything about you will show what you love. Now let's talk for a little bit concerning what that behavior should be in being reverent to God. One is going to be in our language. Never forget that. As James speaks, so we're in 1 Peter, all we have to do is just go over to, I'm just turning a page, James chapter 3, verse 2. For James 3 verse 2, for we all stumble in many things. If anyone does not stumble in word, he's a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body. Indeed, we put bits in horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn their whole body. Look also at ships, although they are so large and are driven by a fierce wind, they are turned by a very small rudder wherever the pilot desires. Even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. Words have started wars. Words have destroyed friendships. Words have taken people to the grave. It's done it. They have done it. Bad words doing it. Now in language, we've already stated it, but Matthew 6 and 9, our Father who is in heaven, hallowed is your name. He is to be hallowed by your language. By your language. Where His name is not taken in vain. And understand what that means. Understand that there are words that I may say that are just filler words. Words I may say that don't have a whole lot of meaning to them, to the actual sentence. But we don't do that to God. We don't do that to Him. That He is to be revered by us, including His name. And I find it a curious matter that those who do not believe in God, or say they don't believe in God, and most certainly do not believe in Christ, will use their name in vain often. Why would you even do that? Why would you do it? Well, you know what? First thing first, Satan doesn't care if you use Buddha's name in vain. He really doesn't care. He doesn't care if you just pick what other name you want. Whether it's Bernie or whether it's Fred or just whatever name you want. Satan doesn't care if you use any other name in vain. He doesn't care. But God's name is a different matter. That's a different matter. And He is to be revered by us. And that would be in our language. I've told this story before. When I was a kid, I thought it was admirable of my uncle until I found differently. It took a little bit of maturing to discover. But he wasn't necessarily a religious man. He had respect for good people and for what he understood that the Bible taught, and to think that he actually knew a lot. No, he didn't. But on occasion, he would say, "My Lord." He would say that. And I thought, oh, well, he is now speaking of God. Well, that's good, until I found out, actually, it's not. He's taking God's name in vain. He's not talking about some Lord of the land, because we don't have those in this country anyway. He's talking about God. He's talking about Christ. And that is a title given to Christ, and using it like that is not holding Him as reverent. That's just pulling out those words, and it's meaningless. They're meaningless words. And you have Jews that, not all, but there are those that in publications, and you may have seen it, of where they for the fear of taking God's name in vain, they won't spell out in English God. It'll be G-D. So that technically they did not spell out God, therefore they could not have taken His name in vain by doing that. Well, it's just everyone knows what you spelled out, so it's pointless anyway. It's a pointless sort of endeavor. Okay, a nice try, but everyone knows what you're spelling, so it really doesn't matter anyway. But it is showing at least an effort, as I said, an effort. It doesn't work, at least not in my book, it's not. But language is all part of it. Let's go to Habakkuk chapter 2. And I love what Habakkuk writes here. He has been, in chapter 1, he has been asking questions. Why is this the case? And it's questions that would be directed to God, because who else is supposed to be doing this other than God? He is it. And he's been asking these questions, and it's very, very possible that Habakkuk knows the book of Job. And I say that for a reason, because Job asks these questions as well, and then gets rebuked by God in the end and shown the truth of the matter. All right? And so Habakkuk now in chapter 2, verse 1, "I will stand my watch and set myself on the rampart and watch to see what He will say to me and what I will answer when I am corrected." The things that he has been asking, these questions, he knows he's going to be corrected, because they're coming from his viewpoint of, we need justice. I don't see justice. Where is it happening? Why isn't it happening yet? Why is it that evil seems to be winning out over everything? Why are they rewarded for evil? Why are these things happening? And he says, I will answer when I am corrected. Knowing. Now here is humility before God, which I think we must be humble before our Maker. We must be humble before Him. And that is part of reverence to Him. Now, let's go to Psalm 130. Psalm 130. And just in looking with a few words, verses 1 and 2, we're not going to read those. Verses 7 and 8, we're not going to read those. We're going to stick to 3 to 6. If you, Lord, should mark iniquities, O Lord, who could stand? Okay, I want you to see that there is reverence. He is being regarded as holy. That should you mark out iniquities, who's going to be able to stand before that? Verse 4, but there is forgiveness with you, that you may be feared. You know, that might seem odd to someone's ears who does not understand God or does not understand concepts in the Bible. How could forgiveness be something that would bring about fear? Because that word fear means respect. That term fear means of understanding someone with a great amount of power and regarding that person with the necessary respect that is due and the necessary honor that is due. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in His word I do hope. My soul, I'm waiting on His words. I hope on His words. I hope on, that's having faith. My soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning. Yes, more than those who watch for the morning. Here is someone whose heart is in it. Our heart is in this, in God, concerning serving God and understanding Him. Now, just going to make brief mention, changing our subject just a little bit. Still talking about reverence. Exodus chapter 3, beginning in that chapter, we have Moses who sees a sight. He doesn't quite understand what's going on. He's in the wilderness, and there is this bush that's on fire. Okay, not that strange, but it doesn't go out. And I wonder how long it took him to notice this thing isn't going out. By now, it should have been consumed and been coals, but it's not. So he's curious, okay, what's this about? So he goes, and then God speaks to him and tells him, take off your sandals because you are now on holy ground. Now, how would it be if Moses did not obey? How would it be? Showing the reverence, showing the respect, showing God as the one who must be obeyed, the one who must be regarded as holy, that's what he's going to do. We also see in Exodus chapter 28 that there are priestly garments that are designed by God. Everything about it is designed by Him, and it's to be done fully. To obey Him means everything about this design has to be done properly. Now, that was for the priests to do their duty. That was what this is, showing respect in service to God. Both of these concern dress in respecting Him. Now, we don't have, unlike the priests there in Exodus chapter 28, we don't have a specified garment. We don't. Nor are we told to take off our shoes because a church building is holy. The building isn't holy. Building's not holy at all. God in us, that is holy. God with His church, in the midst of His churches, that He is holy. Now, the question would be, should we not show respect in service to God by how we dress? Now, I understand. Someone who can afford better clothes as opposed to someone who can't, God knows. God understands that. someone that can go to some very expensive shop, maybe even have something tailor-made. That's one thing. And someone that has to just shop off the rack, like most of us, all of us, shop off the rack. That's another thing. But it is a show of respect that we are trying, that we are doing our best in this, and we don't make it into something casual. Years ago, we were working with a congregation in Florida. It was in Daytona. And every Sunday we'd have visitors because people come and visit. We'd have lots of visitors, as a matter of fact. And sometimes you'd have visitors that they'd show up and they would be dressed for worship. But there would be the occasion where this person's dressed for the beach with a towel around them. And this would seem like something they've got to get out of the way on Sunday so they can get to the beaches where they want to be anyway. Was this a sign of respect? No, not at all. They're showing where they want to be. They're showing what they actually love. This just happened to be some kind of thing that they would, some kind of a formality they've got to do, and then get where they want to be anyway. We need to dress like we are honoring and glorifying God. On a Sunday morning, someone who's dressed nice, you know where they're going. You know where they're going. Pass by cars today, though a trip is short, pass by cars today, of seeing a man in a suit, I know where he's going. I have a good guess anyway. I have a very good guess. And we are in fact glorifying God in that worship is not we don't have a lackadaisical approach to it because He's not impressed by that. A casual approach, He's not impressed by that. And things can happen, I understand that. But being late for worship, God, and habitually late, and that's what we're talking about, being habitually late for worship, God's not impressed by that either. Are you always late for work? Are you always late for school? Are you always late for a job interview? Are you always late for everything else that you do? With some people, it could be a yes for all of that. I know one in particular that I know one in particular, as they say, would be late for her own funeral. Yeah, that person would be. But here is that God is not impressed by not having Him as a priority, because everything we have a priority for, we make time for that. Everything we have a priority for, if I want to do something, I will make it a priority and do it. I'll make it a priority. Now here's the thing about worshiping God, is that you have to have it to where when you get up on a Sunday, you're not, on any given Sunday for the rest of your life, you're not wondering if you're going to church or not. Now if you're not feeling well, that's another matter. But that it's not a decision to be made on Sunday morning whether you're doing that or not. It's a decision that's been made years ago. That's what you do. As we see concerning Christ and His example. Luke chapter 4, as His custom was, He went to the synagogue on the Sabbath. And we see Paul, as there's a custom with him. We see where with the first century church, there were things that were customary for them. This is what they did. Every first day of the week, they came together. Every first day of the week. That's what they were supposed to be doing. And here is this, if we're coming together to worship God, how does something else get greater priority than that? Now, some things can happen. I know that. Someone is sick. Someone can't get here. Someone, this has happened before, not with me, but I knew of a man where this happened, of where he was on his way to church, and there had been an accident, an automobile accident, and he stopped, and this is being a good Samaritan, he stopped to save that man's life. And God would not have a problem with that. That is showing love, that's showing compassion, and that's showing that, yeah, sometimes things have to be done then. But by and large, that doesn't happen. Never happened to me. By and large, that doesn't happen. And God knows our hearts. He knows it. Now here's another part. Let us learn reverence early, and let's teach it early. Let's do that. Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We are to teach and we are to train and show that our children know when we revere something. Our children know the things that we value. They can see it. You can't fake it. They can see it. And we need to show them what is important, what is truly important. And we're showing it. We show it. By the things that we do, we show it. Reverence is required out of us. And the question would be, why shouldn't it be? Why shouldn't it be? Why should we not revere the one who created us, the one who has saved us, the one who gives us eternal life, not just life on this earth, but the promise of a greater hope, the promise of something better than this? Why shouldn't we have a reverence for Him? On Sunday nights, we have been in a series concerning lessons. We haven't gotten there yet, but we can show from texts of angels showing absolute reverence and respect completely to God. They are created a little higher than us. We are created a little lower. They are created a little higher than us, and yet they do it. Why shouldn't we be? We're exempt from that? No, we're not. No, we're not. Let's look at our lives. Let's look what needs to be changed. Let's do what is right before God and not take Him just as a nothing, as a hobby, as just a habit that can be broken at any day. It's not that at all. It is to be from the heart always. Let's look at our lives, because our lives will be judged individually before Christ. Are we ready for that? We ask this morning, if you need to respond to the invitation, that you come as we stand and sing.